Hey YouTube, it's Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters, here with another drum video. Today we're going to be recording some acoustic drums, which are back there behind me. And I'm actually here in my drum room. I got here really early today because I'm in a shared studio space and it tends to get really noisy here later in the day. So it's like 9:30 a.m. So hopefully we'll be able to get some recording done before anybody shows up. And I think we should, though. Most musicians sleep in pretty late. So I've been re-recording the drums for the Manasota album, As the Sun Rises, to actually be re-released as a new version of the whole album. So that'll be coming out here in probably a few months. But basically the reason why I'm re-recording them is when I recorded that album originally, I didn't really have a drum studio where I could record my acoustic drums. So I used a lot of electronic drums on the recording. And though they do sound pretty good, it was never really what I wanted. I wanted acoustic drums because Manasota is kind of like a really organic sounding project and a lot of acoustic instruments. So having the electronic drums on there always kind of bothered me. So now that I have a room where I can record acoustic drums easily that sound pretty good, I figured I would just redo it, and why not? So here we are, and let me just go ahead and show you guys the setup, the microphone setup and the gear and everything that I'm using, and we'll get to tracking some songs. I have like 3 or 4 songs I'm going to try to do today, so hopefully we can get through all those. All right, first off, let's talk about the microphones that I'm using. And right here on the kick drum, you can see I have a Shure Beta 52. Sorry about that. Beta 52 kick drum mic. I kind of go back and forth between that and a EV RE20. I had the RE20 on actually until I got here today, and I just decided to switch this out because I actually haven't tried this mic yet with this particular setup where I have the hole in the bass drum, so I wanted to give it another shot. And on the toms, I have some CAD microphones. These are the D19, and these are really, really good, cheap mics. And I really like how they have the built-in drum clip on them, and they just work really good on my toms. I'm very happy with the way they sound. Actually, we'll hear this later on today, but really I haven't had to do anything to the sound when I record with these. Like the EQ is perfect, and it just sounds really good. Now, the funny thing is they both say Snare on them. I guess they were originally intended to be used for a snare drum, but you can get these on Amazon for super cheap, and I like them on the toms, so just ignore what it says there. On my snare, I have a Audio-Technica ATM 650. Now I really, really like this mic. I've had it for a long time, and well, not a long time, but a couple of years. And it's a great alternative to an SM57 for the snare, especially if you're only using one microphone on the snare. I think that it works really, really well. So up here on the overheads, I'm using some Behringer C1s. And now I have better condenser mics I could use up here, but given that my room has a lot of limited space, these are the only like small condensers that I have that are very light. And the reason why that is important is I can put both on one stand and have that basically coming from there, so it's out of the way. And they don't sound that bad. They do have a little bit of a mid-range like frequency that I don't really care for that much, but I can easily EQ that out, and I'm usually pretty happy with them if I just play around with them a little bit. I have some ribbon mics that I prefer to put up there, but like I said, they're just too heavy to go on the one stand, and I just don't have space in here for another stand. So as you can see, even to get back here, I have to move this cymbal out of the way, as well as my hi-hats. See, it's very hard to get back here. Anyway, let's take a look at the interface, which I need to turn on. This, I haven't had a chance to even show you guys this yet. I've been meaning to, but I've just been very busy. But this is a Tascam US-1608, and this thing is absolutely amazing. Why is it amazing? Because it has 16 inputs and 8 outputs. And 8 of those 16 inputs actually have XLR connections, as well as 2 1/4-inch connections right on the front. The rest of them are 1/4-inch on the back, but I never really need that many inputs. But the fact that I have 8 XLR inputs is absolutely amazing. I can easily record my whole drum set close mic'd, and that's really nice. Also, considering that there are that many inputs on this thing, it is relatively inexpensive, especially, you know, considering how many inputs you get. I'll post a link down below if you want to check one out for yourself. But if you're recording a full drum set, this is really one of the best routes you could go. I have it inside of a rack mount here. It doesn't come with that. This is all it comes with. But, you know, it's really good. So the software side of the interface looks like this. This is the whole control panel that you download from Tascam's website. And this is really cool too. It's got like a full mixer here where you can adjust your levels, and it even has EQs and compressor, even though I haven't really been able to get the compressor to do anything. I might be using it wrong, but I don't ever really put effects to tape, quote unquote tape. I always do my processing after I record, so I'd leave everything, you know, pretty much as is here anyways. But another useful thing here is your output settings, where you can go in and you can route things to the outputs in different ways. And this is very, very useful, the way that you can visualize everything here. Very nice. So, and then the interface just shows you what you have hooked up here. And it's just really, really nice. So anyway, what we're going to be recording with today is Reaper. Well, part of it. There's a couple in Reaper and a couple in Ableton. So let's open up Reaper first. And I'm going to work on a new song, actually. And that's another thing, too. I'm actually going to be including some new songs on As the Sun Rises. It's going to be a little bit different than the original version. So anyway, I'm going to have to get this all set up here and get some levels. And then I'll give you guys some detail. Well, actually, before I do that, I just wanted to mention, too, when you're recording drums, it's really important to have your drums tuned well. And I actually had some questions about tuning recently and how I tune my toms and all of that. And basically the way that I approach tuning my toms these days is I tend to like them pretty low, like a pretty low tuning. And I have coated ambassadors on my toms and actually on my snare too. And I tend to tune the top and bottom heads close to the same pitch, or as close to the same pitch as I can get. My bass drum has a Power Stroke 3 with a pillow inside. And I just tune that pretty low as well. Basically no wrinkles, you know, just tune it up past the point where there's wrinkles. And I think it sounds really good that way. My snare drum I also tune pretty low. Not like floppy low, but it's definitely on the lower side of tuning. And I've talked about this before too. In my opinion, at least for the type of music that I'm recording, when I record my snare, I try to refrain from hitting rim shot because, well, it's a different sound. I'm just not going for that rim shot type sound. I like a full kind of fatter sounding snare drum, and it's easier to get that if you don't hit the rim shot. I mean, I'll hit the rim shot occasionally when I want to do an accent or something, but in general, I try to avoid it because I think you can get a better, fatter snare drum sound if you avoid the rim. Now, as far as cymbals, today, well, recently, the past few weeks, I have all Sabian cymbals here, and it's kind of a cool setup, I think. I have the XSR Big and Ugly 20-inch Monarch ride cymbal, and XSR Big and Ugly, even though it's not very big, 14-inch Monarch hi-hats, and I just recently picked these up, fairly recently, and I think they sound really, really cool. I love the sound of these cymbals. And then I also have two more Sabian. This is a B8X 14-inch China, and then a B8X Ballistic Crash. Now, B8X is a very inexpensive line, and a lot of them do sound like crap, but these do not. So, in case you were wondering, these Ballistic Crashes sound amazing, actually. They sound really, really good. And I like the 14-inch China, too. This is pretty new as well, but I got it at Memphis Drum Shop. Actually, all of these came from Memphis Drum Shop, except for this. I've had this one the longest. But I recently started purchasing stuff on there. I'm sure you've seen their videos, mycymbal.com. That's Memphis Drum Shop. I can't talk. Drum Shop. And the reason why they're so great, or one of the reasons, well, they have an amazing selection. You can buy the exact cymbals that you hear. Like these, I bought this exact pair that I saw demoed on one of their videos, as well as there's no sales tax because they're in Tennessee. So Tennessee doesn't have sales tax. So free shipping to Brooklyn without tax is absolutely amazing. Anyway, let me go ahead and get some levels here, and then we'll get started. All right, so I got everything hooked up, and my levels were pretty much already set from before. But just to show you guys, I'll just go ahead and run through them. So those are my overheads you can see picking up right there, which are pretty sensitive. And let's do the kick drum. So kick is here on number 1. Snare drum is number 2. Rack tom, number 3. Floor tom, and then of course the overheads on 5 and 6. I don't use any room mics or anything like that. Not that I'm against them, but I really don't think that they're necessary here in this room because there's plenty of room ambience. Just picks up on the close mics just because it's such a small and echoey kind of room. All right, I just finished, and just in time too, drummers are starting to show up around me. Starting to make some noise, but yeah, I got all 4 songs done, and I think they were all pretty good. I'm pretty happy with all the takes. I remember what I was going to say earlier, but I forgot. I don't ever put a hi-hat mic. In fact, I have no idea why anybody would ever need a hi-hat mic. If anything, they're always too loud. I just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I play, but I've never encountered a time where I possibly was like, oh boy, I really just can't hear that hi-hat. I don't know, maybe you get more sound, more clarity from the hi-hat, but overall, I just never use one. I don't even have a space to use one, but I don't know. Maybe if I had like a huge room, maybe I'd try it just to see. But anyway, I'm going to head home, pack everything up here, head home, and start working on a mix. All right, so I'm home here working on some mixes, and just so you know, this song isn't finished yet. But it's getting pretty close, and I think it sounds good enough to where I could show you guys some of this. And, okay, so first off, actually, let me do something here real quick that I haven't done yet. I want to make a drum group. I'm working in Ableton right here. This is one of the Ableton projects. So I just selected all my drum tracks, Control-G for group. I'm just going to rename this All Drums. Okay, so now I can solo these drums so you guys can hear what the drums sound like. So let's play some back. So I actually did a little bit of a lot of mixing already because I can't really do it while I'm doing the screen capture because I can't mix using these headphones, this gaming headset. It just doesn't sound right. So I'm just going to explain to you what I did already, and then we'll just go through it from there. I'll probably, do some final touches to this still, but this is basically what I do to get started. And first off, let me just show you my kick drum, and I'm using the SSL G channel strip from Waves on my kick drum, and I usually use this channel strip on a lot of stuff. This is kind of like my EQ and compressor and gates and all kinds of, on drums at least, I tend to use this one a lot, and on bass guitar I use it a lot. But kick drum, it has basically a kick drum preset in here, and I usually just start with that because it already sounds really good. And then just make a little adjustments after that. I think all I did was turn down the high frequency just a tad, or high mid frequency just a tad, and then I lowered the level a little bit from the default setting. But other than that, I pretty much left it the same. And what's nice about this is it has like a gate on it too. So let me play this back. Let me get up here a little ways where you can hear. Gives it a nice attack, nice full bottom end, and it just sounds really good in the mix. Okay, now let's move over to the snare drum, and on my snare, I just put a little bit of EQ on here. Now I may want to put a gate on here, because I am noticing some, well, we'll see. Let me
Actually, it's fine. I mean, yeah, you hear bleed, but that's okay. It's not like a bad bleed. And sometimes bleed can be good. In the mix, sometimes it can actually sound pretty good. It just gives us some ambience and stuff. So all I did here is I just added a tiny, tiny little bit of high frequency to the snare. And that's all. Not a lot. So let's move on to my rack tom and floor tom. So let's solo both of those. Now these, there are some weird, you hear the ringing frequency there. Now I did put some gates on here, but I took them off for the same reason where I thought that was kind of choking them too much. But I may put that back on there. Let's see. I have a preset that I made called Tom Gate. Where'd it go? Huh. Oh, it's no wonder. I'm in the wrong thing here. Let's go to audio effects. Tom Gate. And this is my preset that I made for toms. Let's just drop this on the rack toms. And now you can see that gets rid of most of that background noise. But then when I hit the toms, they come back in. So let's get to a spot where there's some toms. All right, let's go ahead and hear that in the mix. Yeah, I think that's good. It cleaned it up quite a bit. Now you'll notice I am clipping here a little bit on the kick drum and the snare drum, but it doesn't bother me. I record in 24-bit, so I do have some headroom there to play with, and it's not distorting. What you're hearing, if you are noticing a little bit of overloading sound, that is actually because of this J37 plugin that I have here on my master output. This is basically like a tape saturator plugin. So let me just show you what this does overall. And now let me bypass it. It's very subtle, but you do notice it. And I played around with some of the settings on here, and I kind of like what it does. It gives it sort of an analog sound. Off. On. Okay, now another thing that I like to do is on my overheads. First off, let me show you the EQ. Remember how I told you before those overhead mics have a little bit of a funky mid-range on there that I'm not crazy about. And all I do there is I actually created a preset already on this SSL EQ. And you'll notice that it's about 3.5K. I'm cutting a little bit. And then I'm boosting around 10.21K a little bit on the high frequency. Just a tad. Actually, it's kind of a big high mid cut. But, you know, let me show you the difference. If I play it with the mid cut and then without the mid cut. So here's with it. Now let me turn it off. Again, it's very subtle. But the thing is that I feel like it gives it a little bit, when I have that mid-range in there, it makes the mix a little muddier. So it cleans it up a little bit. And, you know, I like kind of a raw drum sound. I mean, it's not a super polished sound that I go for. I like it to sound kind of vintage and raw and just real, you know. So I try to keep some of that character intact when I'm doing my mixes, which is why I'm careful with the gates and stuff like that, too. Overheads are panned left and right. And then this is just an overhead group right here. This is so I can easily turn them up or down, both of them, without, you know, getting them out of balance. Another thing too is I use a bus compressor, and what that is basically you create an aux channel and you put a compressor on it. And for this compressor, I'm using the CLA 76, which is kind of like a 1176 compressor limiter emulator. And if you may remember way back, well, I doubt that a lot of you remember this, but Pro Tools used to have this Bomb Factory 1176 emulator, and I always really liked that thing. And then I was really glad that CLA Waves, Chris Lord Alge is the guy who does a lot of these plugins for Waves. And I was really glad that he did this because it sounds almost just like that one that they had for Pro Tools back in the day. And it's a very similar plugin. It works pretty much the same, except you even have like a few more options. So what I do with that is I usually run a pretty high compression ratio. But I put it on an aux channel, and then I run my overheads and my snare drum a little bit to that bus compressor there. I don't put compressors directly on the snare drum or the overheads. I always do it through a bus compressor, because if you put a compressor directly on the snare drum, I feel like it like kind of kills the life of the snare drum. I prefer to have it kind of a natural sound, and then if I want compression to fill it out a little bit, then I do that through a bus compressor. As I was saying before, the toms have absolutely no EQ on them at all. The only thing that's on there right now is that gate, the tom gate, and I have them panned about 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Let me fix that up a little bit. And then the overheads are panned hard left and right. Kick drum and snare drum are dead center. And that's pretty much it. As far as levels go, I usually don't have to change too much. You'll notice my overheads were turned down a little bit. And the toms, well, the rack tom, I had to turn that down a little bit. Floor tom is at 0. Snare and kick are pretty much how they were. I did adjust the kick level by using the SSL G channel, though, right here. But what I'm trying to say is most of the time my levels are really pretty set when I hit record. So there's not a whole lot of mixing that I have to do as far as levels go. A little bit, but not a ton. The one thing I am noticing, though, when I'm going back and checking out the difference between the ones I recorded in Ableton and the ones I recorded in Reaper, the ones in Reaper actually sound better, in my opinion. The drums, I don't know what it is about what's going on with the way that the audio is being processed, but the Reaper sounds are really, really good. And not that these are bad, but I just prefer the Reaper ones. Now, I love Ableton as far as a program. Like, there's a lot of, and there's a reason why I use Ableton, because it has a lot of flexibility and I can arrange songs easily and do things like that. But I think in the future, when I'm doing music, guitar, drums, bass, pretty straightforward music that isn't electronic based, I'll probably stick mostly with Reaper for drum sounds, because I'm really happy with the way those are sounding. Sorry I don't have one here to show you guys just yet. I mean, they sound similar. It's, you know, it was all recorded in the same day and with the same mics and everything. It's just, there's just something about it. It just has a better character, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bounce of this song. And like I said, this song isn't quite finished yet, but then I'm going to show you guys, I was playing along, you know, I recorded some video while I did the drum track. So I'll just show you guys the, you know, the final result or semi-final result of the recording here. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them down below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, click the bell icon and the like button. Follow me on Apple Music. Follow Manasota on Apple Music as well, and Spotify and all of that, because that's what this project is going to be, or what you're hearing here is part of that project. And yeah, so anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll close it out with the recording of me playing on the drums with the video. So see you guys soon. Later.